Top news today. Queen Camilla and King Charles in gold state coach to Buckingham Palace coronation. Streets that were normally busy with traffic now felt different, filled instead with people walking slowly, talking quietly, and looking toward the same direction. There was a feeling in the air that something important was about to happen. It was not loud or rushed. It was calm, respectful, and full of expectation. Across the city, homes had televisions turned on from early hours. News presenters spoke in steady voices, reminding viewers that this was a rare day in history. Cameras were set up along major roads, near landmarks, and close to Buckingham Palace. Reporters stood ready, holding microphones, dressed formally, aware that millions of people around the world were watching the same scenes unfold. This day was about tradition, but it was also about change. King Charles was stepping into a role that had been prepared for over many decades. For many people, this moment felt emotional because it followed a long period of transition. The country had experienced loss, reflection, and adjustment. Now, it was moving forward, carrying its past with it. As the early light touched the buildings, the streets began to fill more quickly. Families arrived together, some with children wrapped in flags, others holding small cameras or phones. Elderly people stood close to barriers, leaning slightly forward, determined not to miss a second. Some had traveled long distances just to be present. They spoke softly about memories of earlier royal events, comparing this morning to moments they had seen many years ago. Police officers and security teams were already in position. They stood alert but calm, guiding crowds and ensuring everything moved smoothly. There was no sense of fear or tension, only order and quiet excitement. Volunteers helped visitors find places to stand, offering directions with polite smiles. Everyone seemed to understand the importance of behaving with respect. In nearby buildings, behind closed doors, final preparations were taking place. Officials reviewed schedules, checked communication systems, and confirmed timings. Every detail mattered. This was an event that would be replayed, studied, and remembered for generations. Mistakes were not an option, and the careful planning showed in every movement. Inside a private space, King Charles prepared for the journey ahead. He was calm but thoughtful. Years of waiting, learning, and observing had led to this moment. He understood the weight of the crown, not just as a symbol but as a responsibility. He thought about the people he served, the history he carried, and the future that now rested in his hands. His expression reflected seriousness, but also determination. Queen Camilla stood nearby, composed and steady. She was aware of how closely she would be watched, how every gesture and expression would be noticed. Over time, she had learned how to remain strong under public attention. This morning, she focused on supporting the king and honoring the role they now shared. Her calm presence added balance to the moment. Outside, the sound of distant bells marked the passing of time. News commentators explained the importance of the route, the meaning of the carriage, and the reason this moment mattered so deeply. Viewers from different countries listened, some familiar with the traditions, others learning about them for the first time. The story was no longer just local, it was global. People in the crowd shared smiles with strangers. Some talked about the weather, relieved that the skies were clear. Others spoke about history, pointing out buildings and telling children why this day mattered. There was a sense of unity, as if everyone present was connected by a shared experience. Even those watching from afar felt included through screens and broadcasts. As the time grew closer, the crowd became quieter. Conversations slowed, and many people turned their full attention toward the road ahead. The air felt still, as though the city itself was holding its breath. This was the beginning of a journey that symbolized continuity, duty, and national identity. In homes, people adjusted their volume settings and sat closer to screens. Some paused their daily routines, delaying work or household tasks. For a few hours, Life slowed down so history could take center stage. This was not just about seeing royalty. It was about witnessing a moment that connected past, present, and future. The news anchors spoke with care, choosing words that reflected respect. They reminded viewers that this procession was part of a larger ceremony, but also a moment of reflection for the nation. It was a reminder that leadership is not only about power, but about service and responsibility. As the mourning continued, the sense of importance only grew stronger. The streets of London had seen many events over the centuries, but each one carried its own meaning. Today was about renewal and stability, about honoring tradition while stepping into a new era. The crowd waited patiently, eyes fixed forward. The journey had not yet begun, but its impact was already being felt. In that quiet anticipation, there was pride, curiosity, and hope. The city stood ready, the people stood united, and the world watched closely as history prepared to move forward. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. A gentle movement in the distance caught people's attention, and a quiet wave passed through the crowd. Heads turned in the same direction, conversations stopped, and phones were lifted into the air. Slowly, carefully, the gold state coach began to appear. It moved at a steady pace, shining softly under the daylight as if carrying not just people but history itself. The coach was grand, yet calm in its presence. Its golden surface reflected the surroundings, the buildings, the sky, and the faces of those watching. For many people, this was the first time seeing it in real life. Some had only known it from books, photographs, or old videos. Seeing it move through the streets made the past feel close and real. The horses pulling the coach walked in perfect rhythm. Their steps were slow and controlled, trained through long practice. Their harnesses were clean and carefully prepared, adding to the sense of ceremony. Alongside them, guards in traditional uniforms walked with focus and discipline. Their presence reminded everyone that this was not just a parade but a carefully protected event. Inside the coach, King Charles sat quietly. His posture was upright, his expression thoughtful. As the coach moved forward, he looked ahead, aware of the millions of eyes watching him. This journey was more than a short ride through the city. It marked a moment he had waited for most of his life. Years of preparation, learning, and patience had led him here. He thought about the role he now held. It was not something new, but something deeply rooted in time. He understood that leadership came with expectations, but also with service. The coach moved slowly, giving him time to reflect. The sound of the horses' steps and the distant cheers blended into a steady rhythm that matched the weight of the moment. Queen Camilla sat beside him, calm and composed. Her face showed quiet strength. She knew that this day was important not only for the king, but also for herself. Over the years, she had learned how to stand steady under public attention. Now, she focused on the meaning of the moment, supporting the king as they moved forward together. Outside, the crowd reacted with growing excitement. As the coach passed closer, cheers rose gently, not loud or wild but respectful and warm. People waved flags, some with smiles, others with serious expressions. Many felt a mix of emotions. There was pride, curiosity, and for some, a sense of deep connection to tradition. Children sat on shoulders to see better. Parents pointed toward the coach, explaining its importance in simple words. Elderly spectators watched with quiet attention, some remembering similar moments from decades ago. For them, this was not just a new chapter, but part of a long story they had lived through. News cameras followed every movement. Reporters described the scene carefully, explaining details to viewers around the world. They spoke about the coach, its history, and why it was used only on rare occasions. Their voices remained calm, matching the tone of the event. This was not about speed or excitement, but about meaning. As the coach continued along the route, the city seemed to slow down. Traffic was stopped, shops were closed, and daily routines were paused. London, usually busy and loud, felt quiet and focused. It was as if the city itself was watching, aware that this moment would be remembered long after the day ended. The buildings along the road stood as silent witnesses. They had seen many generations come and go, many changes, many moments of importance. Today they watched another turning point. The sunlight touched their walls, adding warmth to the scene, while shadows moved gently as the coach passed by. For King Charles, the journey carried both honor and responsibility. He knew that people expected steadiness, understanding, and dedication from him. As the coach moved forward, he reminded himself of the values he wished to represent. This was not about personal achievement, but about serving a nation with care and respect. Queen Camilla remained focused, aware of her role beside the king. She understood that her presence mattered. Her calm expression and steady posture sent a quiet message of support and unity. Together, they presented an image of partnership, one built on shared duty. In homes across the country, people watched closely. Some sat with family members, others watched alone. Conversations paused as the coach filled the screen. Even those who were not deeply interested in royal events felt drawn into the moment. There was something about the slow movement, the careful ceremony, that encouraged reflection. Social media filled with images and short messages. People shared their thoughts, their photos, and their feelings. Some expressed admiration for tradition, others spoke about hope for the future. Despite different opinions, many agreed that the moment felt important, something larger than everyday life. As the coach moved closer to its destination, the sense of significance grew stronger. The cheers followed it, rolling gently along the route. The guards remained focused, the horses steady, the crowd respectful. Everything worked together in quiet harmony. This part of the journey showed the balance between past and present. The ancient coach moved through a modern city, watched by people using the latest technology. Tradition and change existed side by side, neither overpowering the other. By the time the coach passed beyond view for many spectators, a feeling of satisfaction settled in. They had witnessed something rare, something meaningful. Even though the journey was not yet complete, this moment already felt like history in motion. The Gold State coach continued forward, carrying the king and queen toward the next stage of the day. Behind it, the city slowly began to breathe again, but the memory of its passing remained strong. People knew they would talk about this moment for years to come, remembering where they stood, what they felt, and how the quiet power of tradition moved gently through the heart of London. As the Gold State coach moved further along its path, the reaction of the people became the heart of the moment. It was no longer just about what was happening inside the coach, but about how the nation and the world were responding. Faces in the crowd showed many emotions, and each person experienced the event in a personal way. Along the streets, people stood shoulder to shoulder, yet there was a shared sense of respect. Even in large groups, there was calm. Voices were gentle and movements were careful. People seemed to understand that this was not an ordinary public event. It was a moment where history and everyday life met. Some spectators held small flags and waved them slowly as the coach passed. Others simply watched in silence, wanting to remember every detail. A few people wiped tears from their eyes, surprised by how emotional they felt. They had not expected a procession to move them so deeply, but the meaning behind it made the feelings real and strong. Older citizens stood quietly, many with memories stretching back decades. Some had seen earlier royal moments as children or young adults. They spoke softly to those beside them, sharing stories of past events and how different times felt. For them, this day was a reminder of how much the world had changed and how some traditions continued through it all. Younger people experienced the moment in a different way. Many held phones high, recording short videos or taking photos. They wanted to capture the scene, not just to share it but to keep it for themselves. For many of them, this was the first time seeing such a historic event in person. It felt new, impressive, and important. Children watched with wide eyes. Some asked questions, curious about the coach, the uniforms, and the reason for the celebration. Parents and grandparents answered patiently, using simple words to explain tradition, leadership, and history. These quiet lessons passed through the crowd, connecting generations without effort. Visitors from other countries stood among local residents. They listened closely, watched carefully, and took in the atmosphere. For them, this was a chance to witness a tradition they had only known through books or television. They spoke in different languages, but their expressions showed the same curiosity and respect. The sound of applause moved like a soft wave. It was not loud or demanding, but steady and warm. It followed the coach as it passed, growing slightly louder near larger groups. The applause felt like a shared message of acknowledgement rather than celebration. It was a way for the people to say, "We see this moment, and we understand its importance." News reporters nearby described these reactions in careful detail. They spoke about the mood of the crowd, the calm behavior, and the emotional expressions. Their words helped viewers at home feel connected, even if they were far away. Through the screen, the audience could sense the respect and meaning carried by the moment. In homes across the country, people reacted in their own ways. Some families watched together, sitting quietly, discussing what they were seeing. Others paused their work or daily tasks, standing near screens for a few minutes just to witness the procession. Even brief glances felt meaningful. Some viewers felt proud, seeing a symbol of continuity and tradition. Others felt thoughtful, considering what leadership meant in modern times. There were also those who simply appreciated the beauty of the moment, the careful planning, and the calm atmosphere. Each reaction was different, yet all were connected to the same event. Social media filled quickly with messages. People shared photos from the streets, screenshots from broadcasts, and short thoughts about how the moment made them feel. Some wrote about history, others about family memories, and some about hope for the future. Despite different opinions, the overall tone remained respectful and reflective. The reaction of the people showed how deeply moments like this could reach into everyday life. For a short time, daily concerns were set aside. Work, schedules, and worries paused. Attention turned to something larger, something shared by millions at the same time. In the crowd, strangers exchanged brief smiles. Some nodded to each other, acknowledging the shared experience. There was no need for long conversations. The moment itself created a sense of connection. Even after the coach passed, people stayed in place, talking softly about what they had just seen. As time moved on, the streets slowly returned to movement. Some people began to leave, while others stayed, hoping to catch another glimpse later. But the feeling remained. The reaction did not disappear with the passing of the coach. It stayed in thoughts, conversations, and memories. For many, this moment became a story they would tell later. They would describe where they stood, who they were with, and how they felt. These personal stories would live alongside the official news reports, adding human voices to historical records. The people's response showed that history is not only made by leaders and ceremonies. It is also shaped by those who witness it, feel it, and remember it. Their quiet respect, thoughtful reactions, and shared presence gave the event its deeper meaning. As the day continued, one thing was clear. The procession was not just a journey through the city. It was a moment that brought people together, even briefly, in shared attention and reflection. The crowd had not only watched history pass by. They had become a part of it, simply by being there and feeling its weight together. As the Gold State coach moved closer to Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere slowly changed. The excitement that had followed the coach through the streets turned into something quieter and deeper. People understood that this part of the journey carried special meaning. The destination was not just a building, but a symbol of leadership, history, and continuity. The wide area near the palace was carefully prepared. Security teams stood in clear positions, guiding crowds and maintaining calm. Barriers marked the route, and people stood patiently behind them. No one pushed or rushed. Everyone seemed to sense that this was a moment that deserved respect and order. The palace gates came into view, standing tall and familiar. For many watching, this sight felt powerful. They had seen the palace many times in pictures, movies, and news reports, but today it felt different. Today, it was not just a landmark. It was the final point of a journey that marked a new chapter. As the coach approached, the crowd became quieter. The applause softened and voices lowered. People leaned slightly forward, wanting to see clearly. Cameras focused tightly on the coach, capturing every movement. This was the moment many had been waiting for. The horses slowed even more as they neared the palace entrance. Their steady steps echoed gently across the open space. Guards maintained their formation, faces calm and focused. Everything moved with careful timing, showing the result of long preparation and tradition. Inside the coach, King Charles remained composed. As the palace gates grew closer, he felt the full weight of responsibility. This arrival was not just ceremonial. It represented duty, service, and commitment. He knew that stepping forward meant more than wearing a title. It meant leading with care during times of change. Queen Camilla sat beside him, calm and steady. She understood the importance of this moment and the role she played within it. Her presence was quiet but strong, offering support and balance. Together, they represented unity and continuity, qualities the public looked for in moments like this. As the coach came to a gentle stop, the area felt still. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause. Cameras clicked, flags moved softly in the air, and people held their breath. It was a simple arrival, yet filled with meaning. The palace staff stood ready, dressed neatly, aware of their roles. Their expressions showed focus and pride. They had prepared for this moment carefully, knowing it would be remembered and recorded. Each person played a part, no matter how small, in shaping the image the world would see. When the coach doors opened, attention sharpened. People watched closely, not with excitement alone, but with curiosity and respect. This was not about surprise, but about recognition. The king and queen were stepping into a space that symbolized the heart of the monarchy. King Charles stepped forward with calm confidence. His movements were measured, his expression thoughtful. He knew this image would travel across the world within seconds. More importantly, he knew it would stay in people's memories. His arrival at the palace marked the transition from ceremony to responsibility. Queen Camilla followed, standing beside him. Her posture reflected confidence and understanding. She looked ahead, aware of the moment's importance. Together they stood briefly, acknowledging the scene before moving forward. The palace gates slowly closed behind them. This simple action carried deep meaning. It marked the end of the public journey and the beginning of the next stage. Outside, the crowd watched quietly, understanding that they had witnessed something important. News commentators spoke softly as they described the arrival. Their words focused on significance rather than excitement. They explained how this moment represented continuity after change and stability during uncertain times. Their calm tone matched the mood of the scene. In the crowd, reactions varied. Some people felt proud, others reflective. A few wiped tears, surprised by their emotions. Many simply stood quietly, letting the moment settle. They knew this was not a loud celebration, but a meaningful transition. People began to speak softly to one another. Some discussed the smooth organization, others talked about what the future might hold. There were no strong debates, just thoughtful conversations. The moment encouraged reflection rather than noise. In homes across the country, viewers watched the palace gates close. Some nodded quietly, others exchanged looks with family members. The arrival felt final and important. It was a clear sign that the ceremony was moving forward and that leadership had taken its place at the center. The palace itself stood as it always had, solid and calm. Its walls had seen many leaders, many changes, many moments of joy and difficulty. Today, it welcomed another chapter. The building did not change, but the meaning within it did. For King Charles, entering the palace meant stepping fully into his role. The public journey was complete, but the work was just beginning. He understood that leadership was not about the moment of arrival, but about the actions that would follow. Queen Camilla walked beside him, aware that her support would matter in quiet ways. Her role was not always visible, but it was important. Together, they moved forward with shared purpose. Outside, the crowd slowly began to move. Some stayed longer, not ready to leave. Others turned back toward the streets, carrying the memory with them. The event had ended, but its impact remained. People would talk about this arrival for years. They would remember the calm, the order, and the quiet strength of the moment. It was not dramatic or loud, but it was powerful in its simplicity. As the palace settled into silence again, one thing was clear. The arrival marked more than the end of a procession. It marked the start of a new responsibility, one that would be shaped by time, patience, and service. The journey to Buckingham Palace had ended, but the journey of leadership had truly begun. As the palace gates closed and the public procession ended, attention slowly shifted from the streets to what this moment meant for the future. The ceremony had shown tradition and history, but now the focus turned toward responsibility and expectation. For many people, this final part felt just as important as the journey itself. Inside Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere was calm and organized. Staff members moved quietly through long corridors, following carefully planned routines. Every person knew their role. There was no rush, only purpose. The building, filled with history, seemed to hold a quiet awareness of the importance of the day. King Charles took a moment to reflect. The public images were already spreading across the world, but inside, the moment felt personal. He understood that this position came with trust placed in him by millions. Leadership was not about appearances, but about steady decisions, patience, and service. The ceremony had marked a beginning, not an ending. Queen Camilla remained close, offering quiet support. She understood that the days ahead would bring attention, responsibility, and careful balance. Her role was not about standing in the spotlight, but about strength behind the scenes. Her calm presence helped bring stability to the moment. Across the country, news outlets continued their coverage. Analysts discussed the meaning of the day, focusing on continuity and change. They spoke about how leadership must adapt while respecting tradition. Their discussions were thoughtful, not dramatic, helping viewers understand the deeper meaning behind the ceremony. In homes, people shared their reactions. Some talked about the beauty of the event, while others discussed what they hoped the future might bring. Families sat together, reflecting on what leadership meant in modern times. Even those who usually ignored such events found themselves thinking more deeply than expected. Schools and workplaces resumed their routines, but conversations about the day continued. People mentioned what they had seen, how they felt, and what stood out most. Some remembered the calm pace of the procession. Others focused on the expressions they noticed or the respectful behavior of the crowd. The image of the gold state coach entering the palace became a defining moment. It appeared on screens, newspapers, and online platforms. Over time, it would become part of historical records. For now, it served as a symbol of transition and continuity, reminding people that leadership evolves while tradition remains. International reactions also followed. Messages of acknowledgement came from different parts of the world. News reports described the event as a significant moment in modern history. While cultures and systems differed, many understood the importance of such a transition and the stability it represented. For King Charles, the coming days would bring meetings, decisions, and careful planning. The ceremony had been formal, but leadership would be practical. He knew that trust had to be earned through actions, not words. His focus turned towards service, understanding, and long-term responsibility. Queen Camilla prepared for her role alongside him. She knew that public attention would continue, but her approach remained steady. Supporting charitable efforts, standing with the king, and maintaining dignity would shape her contribution. Her role, though often quiet, would carry meaning. As time passed, the excitement of the day slowly settled into memory. The crowds returned home, the streets reopened, and the city returned to its normal rhythm. Yet something had changed. A new chapter had begun, and people felt it, even if they could not easily explain it. The story of the day did not end with the ceremony. It continued in conversations, reflections, and hopes for the future. People would look back on this moment when discussing leadership, tradition, and change. It would serve as a reference point for years to come. For many, the most powerful part was not the gold, the uniforms, or the ceremony. It was the sense of calm responsibility. The event showed that leadership could be steady, thoughtful, and grounded in service rather than display. As evening approached, news coverage slowly shifted to analysis and reflection. The excitement gave way to understanding. Commentators spoke about the challenges ahead, reminding viewers that leadership is a long journey, not a single day. In the palace, the day ended quietly. There were no grand celebrations, only reflection and preparation. The focus remained on the work ahead. The ceremony had fulfilled its purpose, and now responsibility took center stage. People across the country carried the memory with them. Some felt hopeful, others thoughtful. Many felt a sense of continuity, knowing that while times change, certain values remain important. This final part of the story showed that history is not only made through public events, but through the actions that follow them. The coronation journey ended, but the real work had just begun. The image of King Charles and Queen Camilla arriving at Buckingham Palace would remain in public memory as a moment of transition, dignity, and responsibility. It marked the closing of one chapter and the careful opening of another. In the end, the day was not remembered for noise or spectacle alone, but for its quiet strength. It reminded people that leadership at its best is about service, patience, and commitment. And as the palace lights settled into the evening, a new era moved forward, watched by the world, grounded in tradition, and shaped by the future ahead.